Hi everyone, I'm Vincent. I'm heading product and design at Chattermill. In this session, we like to put a spotlight on Copilot, which is a GenAI powered feature that we launched in closed beta earlier this year. Copilot has been designed based on three key principles. Number one is our commitment to continuously lower the barrier to insight. We want to make sure that everybody in your organization can find customer-centric insights to help their daily or weekly routines. So Copilot was initially designed for business users who don't always feel confident in translating business questions into a chart or confident in terms of interpreting charts afterwards. The second principle is that reliable quantification is key. What that means is that it's critical that the same question yields always the same answer, regardless of who is asking it. It also means that it's critical to provide all of the feedback that were attached to a specific insight so that anyone can audit it afterwards and possibly dig deeper into some of the exact user stories. And the last principle is the importance to proactively guide users. What we've noticed is that business users don't always know what data is available, where it's coming from, and how to filter it. So Copilot is also aiming at guiding users to make sure that they can find valuable and reliable insights. But we thought that for this session, it could be a lot more useful and insightful to hear more from one of our dear customers and partners to talk more about this. So please join me to welcome Juan, Sebastián, and Hernández from HelloFresh. Hi, Juan. Many thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Vincent. Happy to be here.
So you are leading the Voice of the Customer program at HelloFresh. Would you be able to share some of the insights into how your team is organized and how your missions are linked to the overall company strategy?
Sure. I've been with HelloFresh for 3 years right now. As you mentioned, I'm leading right now the Voice of the Customer team. I would say our main objective is to bring the voice of the customer to HelloFresh by facilitating the collection and understanding of customer feedback and by empowering teams to deliver customer-centric initiatives. With all this, we aim to improve our physical product and drive customer excitement. That way, we're able to have higher order rates and revenue across the company.
So you have a mix of centralized and local teams using Chattermill today.
Exactly.
Do you have any insight into how often are local and regional teams using the product as part of their operations?
I would say it's a daily use. I would say that there's different use cases for this. As you mentioned, an example of local use could be, as I mentioned before, by culinary and recipe teams, because let's say the French team is interested in doing their own recipes and seeing what works for them, while the US team could be looking at other things as well. This is specifically true because, as I mentioned, we're across 18 different countries, and at the same time, customers have different preferences across each of the markets. On a global level, right now, we've been working with you guys to implement a new project for the, let's say, the digital product teams. So the ones in charge of maintaining the app and the website. So that would be another good example of the feedback that we get from customers on the digital product, how they implement changes on our digital product across all of the markets as well.
Thank you so much, Juan. So you and the team have been on the Copilot closed beta, I think, since the early part of January. How would you explain Copilot to somebody who has never seen it in the past?
I would say in simple terms, I tried to mention it like a ChatGPT feature within the Chattermill tool. I think it's a tool that definitely helps people gain insights and access insights way quicker than what you would normally do. If I were to go past that simple definition, I would say that there's also some features regarding predictability in there, in that I think the Copilot, based on the data, can also give more in-depth insights that you would usually have in a platform such as ChatGPT. And at the same time, I think there's a learning component, because once you use Copilot, you're able to actually see how the platform uses the different filters for your query. So at the same time, I think it's good that you're able to use and see the filters, because that way in the future, maybe you wouldn't depend that much on Copilot, or if you have to do your own, let's say, ad hoc query or search, you're now able to understand better how to use the platform using the filters available.
It's a very good analogy, and I like what you already saying on the similarity that Copilot has with ChatGPT, and as you mentioned, there are some similarities and differences. Very true that we leverage LLMs to be able to do the last mile summarization, which has been super important for people to really have a good understanding of some specific insights. And it's really super powerful in getting that summarization of the insight. But as you mentioned, the key differences are that the same question will be getting the same answer. We can quantify things a lot better than actually what ChatGPT does right now. And you can also link to all of the feedback data which are collected. So very much similarities as well as some strong differences that actually make hopefully the tool a lot more reliable. Demos can speak louder than words. Would you be okay with showing us some use cases that you've been using in the past?
Sure, happy to do it. Let's see. Let me share my screen. So right now here, as I mentioned, since we have different projects with you guys, we would be in the recipe project. And right now, as you are aware, also the Copilot, we have it in the beta version. So right now, I'm looking at Copilot. I think one of the good things that as the first intro part it has is that you guys already have suggested questions for prompts that we could use. And then you can also have the history of past things that you looked at. From our side, I think it's a powerful tool in that we use it obviously to find insights, but in HelloFresh, obviously we want to improve on the feedback based on, let's say, pain points that customers could have. But I think we also focus a lot on positive aspects and to see either opportunities or best practices done across markets, how we can share it with other markets as well. So this is a good example, simple prompt. Let's say that we put on, what do people in France love about recipes? Here you can see the tool. So as I mentioned before, it's kind of a good learning experience because it's actually telling you which are the filters that it's using on the prompt. It's giving you, on a summarization level, it found 5 insights based on 220,000 feedback. So you have a lot of, let's say, feedback where these insights came from. And you're also able to feed it if the results are helpful or not. In this case, I found it particularly interesting because let's say that on a general level, when I'm talking about what do people love in France, one of the insights is already telling me that there's high satisfaction with the brioche quality. So this might be interesting for, let's say, the recipe or culinary teams, because from this insight that you're saying, okay, we actually have a call out of a specific ingredient that customers are loving. Should we do more recipes with this? How do we leverage the offering that we currently have? Overall, I think you have also different things that you can view in the insights. So you would have the amount of feedback that is given, and it's also giving you the percentage there. It can give you detailed analysis with specific reports, and it also shows you the exact feedback that is given for this insight. So let's say that in this case, it's giving us the information of the comments. As you can see, obviously, since this is French, you can also see the original in French. And it's also giving you information, dates, and also the, let's say, the recipe score that it gave us. So in this case, we have recipe scores from 1 to 4. In this case, it's taking from the highest rated recipes that we have, highest rated feedback that we have from the recipe, and it's giving us the insights. Overall, you can also see that there's high satisfaction with the product quality, delightful and delicious flavor appeal, and high customer satisfaction and positive impact. So it's a really interesting tool. As I mentioned, it can give you a lot of insights, and I think based on the type of user that you are, you can gather different stuff from this. I would say that obviously on the detailed analysis or on the reporting section, this would be more useful for, let's say, the data analysts or the people in charge of verifying data. While if it's someone on a more senior level that is only interested in getting a global or an overview perspective, this is a great tool to use. I mentioned that this was a case for, let's say, France. If we do the same example for the US, so as you can see, it's the initial same filters that we had last time. It's just that it's switched already the country. And in this case, the insights are a bit different. Overall, they also mentioned that they like the quality that we have from the recipes given. But here the insights can be a little different. They say delicious meals exceeding upscale restaurant quality. So in this case, it could be more of a cultural thing as well, right? That maybe the people in the US like to dine out more. And here we're actually saying, hey, okay, we're actually competing with restaurant quality, which is good. As well, we can see again high levels of satisfaction and product quality. And this could be another insight. If we remember on France, we saw that people were raving about the flavor. While in this case, they're also talking about the delicious taste, but they're also talking about easy preparation. So I think this is a good example of how best practices could come across markets, in that, let's say, if the, I don't know, French market or another market would be looking at, I don't know, improving their offering on easy to do recipes. This is a good example of saying, hey, actually the US is known for having this positive feedback. So let's say that the markets could use this, and we could use this internally as a benchmarking tool, as I mentioned, to share best practices. So maybe people are looking into what can they do on the flavor offering. And as we saw before, France is really good in flavor. So they could go to the French team and say, hey, we would like to know what you guys are doing different. Or the US team, they could go and say, hey, what are you guys doing when it comes to easy recipes that maybe we're not doing? So I think it's a good learning experience. And internally, as I mentioned for HelloFresh, I think we use it also to be able to look at not only our pain points, but actually what teams are doing good and what they could even do better in other markets.
Thank you so much, Juan. I really like this, not only the exploration and the investigation in terms of the negative aspect that you fix, but really like looking after the positive aspect and really like reinforcing what people love and learning this across regions. I think is super, super interesting. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. And one final say that I think I haven't mentioned it, but also the availability that you have here is that you can easily at any point change, let's say, the filters in the analysis. So let's say that maybe 12 months is too much of information that we want. So if we want to use it for the last 180 days, so 6 months, we apply the filter and then it just processes it again. Here is now telling you the amount of feedback that it's looking at. So before it was 500,000 and now it's 233. And then see, in this case, for the 6 months, ease of preparation is, let's say, a top insight. So it's also good because you're able to, maybe if you have any extra ideas based on the prompts that you have, you can easily add the filters here with the data that you sent to Chattermill from your company, and it can give you even more insights. So that's another thing that I think it's really powerful from the tool.
Thank you so much, Juan. Do you actually sometimes use the detailed analysis in terms of the more insights, the additional insight that you might be getting on each of these clusters?
I think at some points there are some, let's say, predetermined graphs that we have there that I think can be used definitely for reporting. So at any time, if I see that there's something useful there that I would want to add to a dashboard, I could just easily do it from here. So there are instances that, depending on the query, we could add them in there, but I think it depends on a case-by-case basis. So I think in the long run, yeah, it can be useful, but obviously, I don't know, someone from a culinary perspective might find that report is not useful for them, while someone from a retention perspective could find it useful. So I think we do use it across the company as well, able to leverage it within the platform as well. But yeah, I think it's more of a case-by-case scenario.
Thank you so much. So you've been, I think, having around 2 teams on Copilot, right? Are you able to share some of the insights that they've been using, that they've been finding in Copilot?
Yeah, I mean, from our side, what we're able to see, so the Copilot, we have it for our MPS and cancellation project and for our recipe project. Some of the things that the teams have been able to look at, let's say, is save some time looking at, I don't know, what is the most positive aspect mentioned for the recipes in the past months. Other teams might be able to look at as well of, in a given week, what were the highest rated recipes, or what were the recipes with the most mentions, because obviously sometimes feedback volume also, I would say, affects the type of analysis that it's done. But overall, I think how it's been used in the beta, it's definitely been used to gather some insights for specific, let's say, either cohorts of groups or specific parts of our products that we're interested in diving deep more.
Thank you so much. We noticed that some companies had started to experiment or starting to look into building internal tools that actually leverage LLMs for internal purposes. Is it something that HelloFresh has also been exploring?
I think from our side, in a general perspective, I'm not aware of it. I do know that some local markets are trying to see, hey, how we can better use these tools. I think one of the things that I've at least known from my side is that it could be a bit time consuming to do it internally, and it could take some of the resources that we currently have. And at the same time, there's the whole, I would say, like testing phase of being able to actually have, I imagine that you would have to do like a manual exercise of having actual people go over through the feedback and then have the tool go over from it themselves and have to say, okay, this is accurate, this is not, what is the percentage of accuracy that we're having based on, AI tool versus human made. So I think that could be most of the time consuming thing that we have. So I think that's another advantage of having that tool already inside Chattermill, because obviously from our side, we feed you guys a lot of the data that we receive from customers, and we're able to just take advantage of the tool being worked by you to have, I would say, better insights from our feedback.
We definitely see, like, there is appetite as well, like, to try out, like, the question, is it actually faster? Is it actually easier for local teams to do this? As you said, like, they also, like, struggling in terms of capturing information, transforming information. There's actually a lot of background stuff actually has needed to make sure that the data is primed for analysis. And there is, like, the side effect usually that we also see as in terms of lack of repeatability of insights or the hallucination that you might be getting on LLMs. But it's okay. Thank you so much for sharing. Do you, like, in your perspective, like, if we take a step back, right now, Copilot is still actually in closed beta. You have 2 teams right now enabled. What do you think could be the impact that Copilot could have on HelloFresh once we are able to release it to everybody?
That's a good question. I think it would mostly open the door for different kind of users to be able to use the tool. As an example, I could see, as I mentioned before, on a global scale, maybe UX designers or research teams might be able to look specifically at data that we have on a project and already say, hey, what are the pain points that we're having? Or maybe if they're testing out, a new feature, or even A/B testing something on the website or on the app, they might be able to get better insights and better summarization of the actual results of the test. I could also see data analysts, that we have a lot of them across HelloFresh, use this tool to save them time on gathering the insights based on, let's say, a huge amount of feedback. An example, as you just saw in the US, we have in 1 year almost 500,000 comments. So it can be time consuming to try to do some things with this. And I would say that already having a tool like Copilot to just do a prompt can save them time. And I think also for, let's say, business users or more senior, high up level users, it's a good tool that if maybe they don't have time or they want to see what's happening in the market, I think those little insights that we saw from our side gives them already enough detailed feedback to know what we're getting from customers and how they can, drive initiatives or coordinate with their teams on how to improve the product or the overall offering.
Very inspiring. I'm definitely hoping that we can actually empower or enable all of these use cases. I think it's super exciting there. If you had a magic wand, what would be your number one feedback or feature request for Copilot?
I think we've already given you the feedback from our side, but just for everyone to know, I think it would be really powerful if eventually the tool is able to do comparisons. Because right now, as you saw in our examples as well, we're doing it just for like on a market by market basis. I think the comparisons would be interesting. Let's say on a global level, as I mentioned, maybe there's someone in charge of a cluster of different, let's say, markets. For example, Nordics, we have HelloFresh in Nordics, and we have it in Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. Maybe internally they might be interested in say, hey, can we already with the prompt see what do people prefer in Sweden that they don't in Denmark, or what stands out across some of them? So that would be something really powerful. Or when I come back again to our recipe and culinary teams, it would also be interesting right now if we're able to compare on different date ranges or time periods, because I think it could also be a powerful tool in that if the teams are able to say, hey, we had this schnitzel at the beginning of the year, and now we did a bit of modifications, and last week we send out that new modified recipe, what are the difference between the feedback that we got at week 2 on our schnitzel recipe in Germany versus the feedback that we got on week 35 on the schnitzel recipe as well. So I think if we're able to get that level of comparison, it could definitely unlock even more things for our internal teams as well.
We hear you. Very important. We definitely are planning to actually make it easier to do comparisons. As you mentioned, like, comparison between times, between segments are all critical. Definitely something that we are looking at actually accelerating as well.
That's good to know.
Thank you so much. So do you have any actually closing comments or reflections you'd like to share with the team?
No, overall, I think, we've already been with you guys for the last 9 years. And I think it's really interesting to see how, you're constantly evolving and facilitating also the way for us to get more insights out of our customers. I think we're definitely looking forward to not only Copilot, because I know you guys are also working in a lot of new features as well. And I think from the most part, we actually end up using them a lot. So we're definitely waiting to see how, you guys evolve Copilot from the beta to spread it out. And we're just, patiently waiting to see and excited to see what comes next.
Thank you so much, Juan, for taking the time to join us today and sharing your experience with Copilot. We've covered a lot of ground today. For those of you online who have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat and we'll make sure to follow up by email afterwards after the session. So thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to rolling out Copilot to all of you very soon.
Thanks, Vincent.